Make sure you check out our online store where we work with our graphic designer to create stunning garment and product designs that feature a wide variety of aircraft types such as British fighters, World War II aircraft, American bombers, Russian fighters and much more. You can pick your favourite designs and personalise any items within our Redbubble store that range from clothing right the way through to stationery. All of our designs feature our logo so you can show your support for the channel while getting a quality product. You can head to our website aircrewinterview.tv and click store, or go to redbubble.com/people/AC interview. Thank you and enjoy. So Chris, when did you first become interested in aviation?
I didn't know I was interested in aviation until I was about 12. We went on a family holiday, and I remember quite vividly my father, I was walking up the stairs onto this old Trans-Australian Airlines 727, and he pushed me in front of him and he said to the stewardess, "My son Christopher wants to see the cockpit." I didn't know what a cockpit was. So he pushed me into the cockpit. The next thing I knew, I was strapped into the jump seat behind the captain. Lots of new words, jump seats. There was a flight engineer to the right of me. There was a first officer. And I sat in that 727 for takeoff. And from that moment, as we rotated into the sky, I thought, wow, I didn't even know this existed. And I remember these pilots all looked around at me after takeoff and they said, "So what do you think of that, Christopher?" And I went, "Is this your job?" And they all laughed at me, which doesn't help the shine of a 12-year-old boy. And basically, I decided that that's the job I want to do. And it's really weird how that moment is still so vivid in my mind. I can't remember before that, and I can't remember the holiday we went on. It was just like, I'm going to be an airline pilot. That's all I want to do.
So you didn't want to, many people tend to go to the military, but you wanted to go airline. But did you ever try to go for the military?
I did. I applied to the military, and at the time, if I was successful, I had a private pilot's license before I was 18, and I applied to the military. And at that moment, they were flying F-111s and F-18, and they were getting the F-18 Hornet in Australia. And I was really, really keen on that. And what put me off is one of my school friends' dad was an airline captain, and he had a big house, a Porsche 911, a speedboat, and a yacht. And he said to me, "No Air Force pilots have any of this stuff." And I was sort of like, "Oh, yeah, I want the Porsche." And that's it. When you're 18 and impressionable, that's what you go for.
So you're kind of single-minded at that track.
And also, the other thing he said to me, he said, "Oh, yeah, I fly with a lot of ex-military guys." He said, "But they don't join the airlines until they're in their 30s. And when you're 18, you think you're 30s. That's forever. That's forever." So, yeah, I was really keen on flying the F-111 and the F-18 Hornet had I been fortunate enough to fly those aircraft, but I never got the opportunity, unfortunately, because I didn't go down that route. I was actually lucky in Virgin Atlantic. I got to spend a week down at Coldrose Naval Base, and I got to fly the Hawks down there. So that was good fun. So I did get that little bit of military feel. But yeah, the career in the military, it just didn't happen. You've got to go one way or the other. Well, you can go both, but if you go both, you end up later in the airlines, and then you start a new career. And it's actually difficult for some of the guys, especially now with COVID.
Absolutely. And you talked about your PPL there. So can you tell us about how this started and how long it took?
So I was that 12-year-old kid who wanted to be a pilot, and my parents don't come from a wealthy family. And so my dad said, "We better go out earning." So I remember I had 3 paper rounds. I had a paper round before school, 2 paper rounds after school. I then worked in supermarkets, pushed trolleys, and my dad made me pay for my flying lessons. So once I'd saved up enough money, I'd go for a flying lesson. Then I'd save up some more money, go for another flying lesson. And I used to work on building sites. He's a builder, so I worked on building sites on weekends, public holidays, school holidays. And then eventually I got some work down at the local flying club at Moorabbin Airport at Melbourne. And they would actually take me up in the back seat. So I'd actually get not lessons, but I'd be seeing what's going on from the back seat. And then when it got time to do my lesson, I had that extra little bit of experience. So I worked at a flying school. I used to, clean the aircraft, refuel the aircraft, do the fuel checks and work on the front desk, answer the phones. And I worked at a flying school, and eventually one day I ended up working at that flying school. So it was a very long, slow process, but it made me realize that the value of my flying lessons and the cost of the flying lessons, obviously. So I'm self-funded by that way.
Yeah, I like that kind of like you didn't have a silver spoon, you worked at it, you grafted. I think that's great.
I never did things like watch TV. I'm a 57-year-old man. I still don't watch TV. People say, "Did you see this on Netflix?" I went, "I don't watch TV. Too busy."
So obviously being an airline pilot, but what was the first airline or aircraft you wanted to go into, like when you had that vision in your mind?
So obviously, as a young kid, I wanted to fly the 727 because that was just such a cool aircraft. I mean, even today, it's just one of the coolest looking airliners ever built. I joined Ansett Airlines. They had 727s. Although when I joined Ansett Airlines, I started on the Fokker F-27. It's like a museum piece these days. In fact, the predecessor, the Fokker 50, I've just found out is now being retired as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm that old. I've been in aviation that long, 39 years flying. But the F-27 was a great aircraft for a young pilot to learn the airline industry. I was an Aussie bush pilot for 2,500 hours until about 23, 24. I joined Ansett, flew the F-27, and then 2 years of flying the F-27, they bought this brand new thing called the A320. It was brand new in 1989. Ansett was one of the launch customers of the A320, and I had the option. Here's the interesting one. I had the option to fly the 727 or the A320, and I always wanted to fly the 727. But as a young guy in his career, I thought, no, I've got to stick with the new airplane because a new aircraft is going to take me through my career, and that was the right choice at the time.
So how did you transition, obviously going from a prop aircraft to a jet aircraft? Like, was there a massive difference there?
Yes and no. It's a really good question, actually, Mike. So, yeah, obviously a prop aircraft is slower, but in many ways it's more complicated to operate because it's an older type of aircraft, whereas the A320 was such a new, advanced, modern airliner, but also I was a very young guy learning this new modern airliner, so it all made sense, and all the computers and the side stick and the interface with the computers and so on. So I think it was such a big difference from the F-27 to the A320 that I never even thought about it. In fact, somebody said, what's it like flying with the side stick? And the first time somebody said that to me, I went, oh, yeah, it's got a side stick, hasn't it? Because you're concentrating so much on the operation of the aircraft, you're not really thinking that you're flying with a side stick. Your hand is doing something to make the airplane go where you want it to go, but you don't really think of that because you're concentrating so much on everything else, which is, maneuvering the aircraft and making the aircraft do what you want it to do. It was a very, very different concept. But, yeah, turboprop to jet aircraft, it's just faster, isn't it?
Yeah.
And bigger, the momentum.
So when, obviously, the early days of the A320, was it all glass at that point, or was there still analog gauges everywhere?
No, the A320 is much the same as it is today. It's an amazing aircraft. Airbus designed and built that aircraft in 1987, and it was introduced into only a few airlines. Ansett was one of the launch customers in 1989 with British Airways, Lufthansa, Air France, and I'm not sure lots of people out there will know all the launch customers, but Ansett was one of the launch customers. So I was one of the first people in the world to fly it, and it was all glass cockpit, and it hasn't changed much today. In fact, the A320 became the A330, the A340, and the A350, A380 are the first two where they've actually changed the concept a little bit. So the A380 and A350 concepts, cockpits look very different not very different, but slightly different from the A320. But the 320, 330, 40, that concept or that cockpit lasted good 25, 30 years, and it hasn't changed much, and it's still a very good cockpit today.
What is the process of going, like, right, I want to fly for that airline? What is the process of applying to getting to fly? How long is that, and what's included in that?
Another good question, Mike. It's obviously variable, and right now with COVID, who's going to know how it would be? However, I would say, and I'm saying to all the young guys, or not even young guys, some people are starting aviation as a second career, and I say to them, right now is the perfect opportunity to become a pilot. With chaos becomes opportunity, and right now aviation is in chaos. So if you want to become a pilot, it will take you 18 months to 2 years to actually get qualified to get into an airliner. It sounds like a long time, but there's a lot to do. There's 14 exams. There's lots of flying training. I think you need a minimum of 500 flying hours. I would recommend, there's many different routes you can go down to, Mike. Now, you've got the big flying schools in the UK. You can hand them 100, 120 grand, and they'll give you a license in 18 months. All right? Exactly. So if you've got 120 grand, go and do it that way. That's the easy way. If you haven't, go to America, go to Canada, go to Australia, go to New Zealand, or we can't go to those places at the moment. But if you can get to those places soon, go to somewhere where it's cheaper to learn to fly, go to a smaller flying school and just bang out the hours, get the qualifications, sit the exams. And I always recommend the United States to anybody in the UK because there's many reasons for the United States. One, it's half the price. Two, you get a lot more flying in because the weather's generally better if you go to somewhere like Los Angeles. Three, you're going to get an amazing experience flying around the United States and different accents and radios, and there's lots and lots of airways and places you can fly to out in the United States. You're getting a great experience, but the most important thing, you're getting an FAA license. And like you say, if you want to get a job with Virgin Atlantic needs a UK CAA ATPL. However, if you've got an FAA license, you can work for Emirates, you can work at Etihad, you can work for any of the Chinese airlines, you can work for the American airlines. By having an FAA license, it gives you a lot more options to go and get some experience. because Virgin Atlantic, we won't take a pilot until you've got between 1,500 to 3,000 flying hours. So you need to get that experience before there. We don't take brand new pilots like your EasyJets and your Ryanairs. They'll take an ab initio pilot. We need somebody that's got experience. We will take a Ryanair pilot or an EasyJet pilot, but we need somebody with experience. So the best way, I say, go to the States, get the license, come back to the UK, resit the exams. If you've done the exams once, you can pass them twice. And then you do a flight test in the UK. So now you've got an FAA license and you've got a UK license, or you can even do an EASA license in Europe as well. And that will open up Europe to you. So, because the UK license is only good for the UK. Mm-hmm. You cannot work anywhere else in the world except the UK with the UK license. So, there's many different routes. But I would recommend, if it was somebody asking me like you are, I would say go to the States, find a flying school, a big flying school, do your license here, half the price, come back to the UK, do the exams, and then you've got much more options open to you for flying. And you can get it done quicker.
Yeah, so just going back a bit, I'm quite interested in this. You said the 14 exams. So is it like the military? So if you get to, let's say, the 12th exam, you fail, is that you out, or do you get like certain...
No. You get other options to resit again. And I'm not sure of the exact dates. I mean, I learned to fly in 1982, so it has changed. But I remember I came from Australia to the UK in 1990, and I had to sit those exams again. I mean, I got them all first time because I needed a job. I was working as an aircraft cleaner at Gatwick Airport, so I needed to get back into flying. But if you did, at those days, if you did fail exams, you can resit them. But it might be you have to wait 3 months until the next sitting. So, time is important. And if you want to be out there earning money as an airline pilot, and also you need to keep your recency, you need to keep flying. So if you've got to wait 3 months, you've now got to keep flying and you've got to pay for that flying. So until you get a paid flying job, you want to get those exams out of the way and get them done. Hard work pays off.
Exactly. And a testament to you at the moment. So, but I want to talk about the Fokker 100, one of my favourite aircrafts, and it always reminds me of holidays, the City Hopper. What was that like to fly?
It was an amazing aircraft. Like I said, I had the experience on the Fokker F-27, but it was Fokker in name only. The Fokker 100 was a really cool little bizjet. It was it wasn't little, but it was a 100-seat bizjet. So it was a great size aircraft. I flew that for Air Europe. It was only very briefly. I only flew it for 6 months before Air Europe went bust. And we used to go to Brussels and back and Paris and back and Dusseldorf. And it was just such a cool jet. It was the closest I ever got to flying a bizjet, because you sit in this little cockpit and it's got the same sort of screens that you'd have the glass cockpit as the A320, but it was in a vertical rather than a horizontal format. You were in this tight little cockpit. The thrust levers looked cool. And when you put those thrust levers forward, you got thrown back in your seat and off you went. It was just, it was proper bizjet flying in a reasonable size aircraft. It was very, very, very cool. It was a great atmosphere as well at Air Europe. So I really enjoyed flying it. I loved flying with the people. I loved the destination we went to, but it was all too short.
Yeah. And I want to get into your time on Virgin, because obviously the A330 and the A340 are very cool planes. What did you feel when you got posted, I guess, is posted the right word, or to fly these aircraft?
So I applied to Virgin Atlantic in 1990 with my A320 experience, and I got a really nice letter back saying, thank you very much, but we only fly jumbo jets and your glass cockpit time is not very useful for us. So that was it. So I thought, oh, okay. I then flew for many different airlines. I ended up in Cyprus flying a 320 with Eurocipria. Then I went out to Sri Lanka and I flew with Air Lanka. It was Sri Lankan Airlines now, but Air Lanka. And while I was out in Sri Lanka, and remember this is before the internet, Mike, I mean, any of this sort of communication. Yeah. So I bought a Flight International magazine at a news agent in Sri Lanka, and I saw in the magazine that Virgin Atlantic were buying some ex-Northwest, or ordered by Northwest Airlines, A340 300s. And I thought, I can fly one of them. That's basically a 320 with 4 engines. So I remember having to book a phone call. Again, you have to book a phone call to call England. So I had one of these little booths in Sri Lanka, and I called the chief pilot. I just thought, I'll go straight to the chief pilot. I've got to make one phone call. I'll call the boss. So I remember speaking to this guy, lovely old gentleman, and I said to him, oh, hello, sir. My name's Chris Pohl. I applied to you in 1990, and you wrote me a letter saying, thank you very much, but you only have glass cockpit. I noticed that you're buying these A340 300s, which is basically an A320 with 4 engines. And I remember he said, yes, I suppose it is. And I said, well, I think it is so. I think I could fly one of them. And he goes, I think you probably can. Where are you? And I said, I'm in Sri Lanka. Can you be here on Thursday? And this was on a Tuesday. And I went, absolutely, sir, no problem. He said, right, come and see me. And that was it. That was like the interview. Wow. So I then went to the chief pilot of Air Lanka, Suraj Atagali, and I said, I need to be in London for this interview, because he knew I was on a temporary contract. And he said, yeah, of course. So they put me in a first-class seat all the way to London. I arrived in London on the Thursday morning. I went round to the Virgin Atlantic headquarters. I had an interview with James Nightingale, the chief pilot, and then he put me in a simulator with Tony Ling, who was the chief pilot. Sorry, he was the chief pilot, the flight ops director. The chief pilot was Tony Ling. I was in a simulator, which was a 747 simulator. And I went, this is different. I wasn't expecting this. And they said, well, we want to see if you could actually fly an aeroplane, a real aeroplane. So I sat in the right-hand seat of a 747 simulator. There was an engineer on the back, lovely man, Alan Bonnick. I went to put my hands on the thrust levers. He slapped them, and he said, no, I do that. And I went, oh, okay. So I'm sitting there with these big controls in front of me. And I took off, and I had no idea. But as the thrust levers went forward, Tony in the left-hand seat said, Mantoga SRS runway, which is what you say on an Airbus. He'd obviously done an Airbus course, and I knew that I got the job, basically, because we flew this jumbo around a circuit. I didn't really fly it. I was basically a verbal autopilot. They just talked to me and told me what to do. I flew it around the circuit, landed it, and they went, yeah, you got the job. And the following week, I was out in Miami on a course for the A340-300. So I flew the A340-300 until we got the A340-600s, and then we got the A330s after that as well, because we need to move into the twin-engine jet business. So I've been flying Airbuses. I've been flying Airbuses for 37 years now. No, not that long, 32 years. But I've been flying with Virgin for 27 years, and I've got 18,500 hours on 340, 330, and now the 350.
Crikey, wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into a bit of detailing, Chris, for our viewers who might not know. What does dash mean? So A340 dash, what does that mean? Dash 300, 400, etc.?
So they're just model numbers. So the original one was the A340-300. I think they made a 200, which was a shorter version. But the A340-300 was just a model number. And the 300 was a longish version of the aircraft. So here's a good one. There's an A330-200 and A330-300. The A330-200 is a little bit shorter, but it has a larger fuel tank. The A330-300, which Virgin has, is slightly longer, but it doesn't have the center tanks. And so it doesn't have the same range as the A330-200. The A330-200, A330-300 fuselage is exactly the same fuselage as an A340 fuselage. The A340 is just an A330 with wings that hold 4 engines. That's exactly what it is. Wow. It's exactly the same fuselage. The 330 and the 340 are the same fuselage. The A340-300 is an A330-300 fuselage with wings that hold 4 engines, and that's it. And so it's a model number. Then when the 600 came out, that was a very different aircraft. The 600 was an extended fuselage, and the wings were very different, and also the engines were very different on the 600. So it's a model number. And like the 350 that I now fly, there's a 350-900 and a 350-1000. They're just model numbers that Airbus came up with. Mm-hmm. But there's not an A350-800, and there's not an A350-1010 or whatever. There's just a 900 or 1000. They've just come up with those ideas. And I think it's also competing against Boeing. They just want bigger numbers to make it sound more impressive. So it's always competition.
Absolutely, yeah. But you must have had some amazing trips on your time with A340. Is there any stick out in your mind?
Oh, there's so many of them. I was very lucky. I was a 30-year-old long-haul captain flying an A340-300 all around the world, and the most famous destination was Kai Tak Airport. So we used to fly into Kai Tak Airport every day of the week. I went there probably 3 times a month, and flying the famous curved approach, the checkerboard approach, in the left-hand seat of a 4-engine jet. And I remember one particular trip, I had my dad on the jump seat and one of my brothers on the jump seat as well. Flying it. In the good old days when people used to come in the cockpit. And in the good old days when people came into the cockpit, we had all the celebrities. I've had all the cast of Friends and Pierce Brosnan and Frank Bruno, Elton John. I'm missing a few of them out. There's all the celebrities. Who's Snakes on a Plane? What's his name?
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. He was so cool. Yeah. So all these sort of people. But the most famous person, I suppose, I flew Princess Diana back from Hong Kong once.
Wow.
Back to London. And it was a special trip because we didn't have overflight clearance over China. So it was actually the longest flight I've ever done. We filled the tanks up and we flew all the way down the southern route via Burma and India. And we flew 16 hours and 15 minutes from Hong Kong back to London against the headwinds.
Wow, really?
That was a long trip, 16 hours, 15 minutes airborne. That was the longest one I've ever done in basically an old aircraft, the 340-300. So lots of famous people and lots of fun, interesting trips.
So when these celebrities come in, are they like children as well, just looking around like I would be, like, oh, what's that screen do? Or do they pretend they're not bothered?
because somebody's a celebrity doesn't mean they're not a person. They're all humans. I mean, I remember I had Kylie Minogue up there once, and she said she wanted to stay for landing, and I said only if you sing to me, which she did. Because she felt nervous because I said, well, if you sing to me, I'll fly the airplane. How's that? Went great, fantastic. But of course they were a little bit nervous. Frank Bruno, massive big man,
Big love,
he was a very nervous flyer. He didn't even want to come to the cockpit. I said, come in the cockpit. No, I'm not getting in mid-air, Harry. No. And I said, come on. And he just sat there. He took up the whole flight deck, sitting in the flight deck, big man, and he loved it. And it was really, really nice because he was actually a bit of a nervous flyer. But after just half an hour of sitting in the cockpit, he said, oh, okay, I know what goes on now. He was yeah, they are big kids. Elton John came in and sat down. He had a good old chat, but he said he was admitted he was a bit of a nervous flyer, but because of his job, he has to get around flying. So, yeah, people are people. They're just humans, and they're in your environment. So they ask lots of questions as well, and some of them are funny questions. You think that's a weird question, but yeah, the classic one. How many crashes have you had? What? Yeah, none.
I'm still here, so none.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But then you moved on to the A350. That must have been a massive quantum leap coming from the A340.
Yes and no. Airbus is such an amazing airline manufacturer. They've been in the business for 50 years. They've flown built glass cockpit aircraft for about 30 years. They've got the experience from the 320, the 330, and the 340. The 380 was a bit of a change because it was a much larger aircraft, and they altered the cockpit around. So when they built the 350 has an A380 cockpit, but it's basically underneath the bonnet, it's an A330. Now, when I say under the bonnet, every engineer out there go, hang about, because the pilot course, I tell you, the pilot course is 1 week to convert from a 330 to a 350. 1 week, that's all you need. And it's a little bit basic. It says, this is the same as the 330, that's the same as the 330, that's the same as the 330, that's different. The engineering course is 2 months. So basically, Airbus have built an aircraft that pilots who fly Airbuses can fly. So an A320 pilot should be able to jump into a 350 and be able to fly it tomorrow. However, underneath the bonnet, the engineering is very, very different. There's only 2 hydraulic systems, and they're at 5,000 psi instead of 3,000 psi. The undercarriage is very different. The reverse thrust is electric instead of hydraulic. The pneumatic system is very different. So there's many, many differences to make it look the same in the cockpit, if that makes sense. So flying-wise, safety-wise, pilots can fly both types quite safely, but it's a very, very different aircraft with regards to engineering, and that's the magic of the Airbus. They've got this family of aircraft that pilots can fly every one of them. I could quite happily jump into a 380, a 320, and fly both of them. And one of my best friends is a test pilot down at Toulouse, and he said that's exactly what they do. They fly a different one every day.
What's it like working with the co-pilot or the first officer? Like, do you have much banter when you're not flying and stuff like that? Do you share stories?
Absolutely. I mean, that's probably the best bit about the job. It's like we don't know each other, but I bet you we could spend the next 7 hours talking to each other, just talking about backgrounds and where you're from and where you grew up. And that's the whole flight is like that. And also we've got this vested interest of aviation where we'll talk about our love of aviation. So what airplanes did you start flying and where did you do that? And it's a whole bio from takeoff to landing, and you get to know the guy. Get down route in New York and you go for a beer and you continue the conversation. So I think that's one of the best parts of the job. And you do fly with different people all the time. That's one of the questions I get asked. How often do you fly with the same people? Maybe twice a year, you might see the same person. And we're quite a small airline compared to other airlines, but you might only fly with the same person twice in 1 year, or not at all.
So what would you say the split is from like just becoming like an airline pilot like yourself, going up through the ranks, and people who've joined from the military?
The guys from the military, they come in. I'm a training captain, so I get to train a lot of the pilots. And I will tell you that the military guys, for you guys out there, they are the easiest guys to train because they've just got that discipline with their flying, and they've gone through a rigid system of skill tests throughout their whole career, and they've always got to be better, and they've always, they've got this really strict flying regime. So when they come into the airlines, we say, okay, give me a 15-degree angle of bank, and they'll sit there on 15, not 16, not 14. They'll sit at 15. You say, okay, take it up to 20. They'll do 20, right? Whereas the GA guy, you don't know what you're going to get. He might be an Aussie bush pilot like me. He might have flown F-27s. He might have flown cargo. He might have flown any sort of thing. Whereas the military jet pilots, they do exactly what you tell them to do. They learn the stuff, and they're very easy to teach because they're very disciplined. Disciplined is the right word. They've got good disciplines and good skills with their flying, so they're easy to teach. But the thing they need to learn is it's a 2-pilot environment. right? So you see them in the simulator and they think that they have to do everything themselves perfectly. You think, hang on, you got a guy sitting next to you. You can ask him to do some of that. So that's what we have to teach them. We have to teach them how to fly in a multi crew cockpit. And that takes a little while, but we beat it out of them. We get them working together. And they're some of the best pilots that we have flying for us now.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you this question, Chris. What's your favorite meal when you're traveling and flying?
Favorite meal? Anything that's free. No, first class food. At the moment, what's really funny, my favorite meal actually at the moment is we're doing a lot of cargo at the moment, Mike. So what's happening is we get on board and the offers that we have, there's no first class food at the moment. What I sometimes do is I'll pop into Marks and Spencer's at the airport and buy myself a nice big family curry and take it on board, and we'll all have a nice curry. And on the way home, I did one recently. I picked up a big 18-inch pizza from a place called Grimaldi's Pizza, an 18-inch pizza. I had to fold it to get it through the X-ray machine at the airport. And then when we got on board, we heated it all up. And we all had pizza on the way home. So, yeah, I think pizza in the flight deck's quite cool.
That's brilliant, yeah. So, yeah, how long, you mentioned before, can you remind us how long you've been flying with Virgin for?
I've been with Virgin for 27 years, just over 27 years now. And I was one of the luckiest guys. When I joined at 30 years of age, I was a captain within the first year. I was one of those lucky guys. So I've been flying for Virgin for 27 years, being a captain for 26.
Brilliant. Sounds like you've had an amazing career, but you've also got, I guess, a second career now on Instagram. How did that happen? Because you're a sensation, Chris.
It's hilarious. So it's now 18 months ago. My daughter was 18-year-old daughter, as young girls do. She's flicking away on a mobile phone while talking to her mum and listening to me, because girls can do all that. And I said, "What are you doing with your phone?" Because it was annoying me. She was fidgeting, and she said, "I'm on the gram." And I went, "What's the gram?" And she went, "The gram." Like, something wrong with you? And I went, "What, gram?" She went, "Instagram." I went, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that." I said, "What is it?" And she showed me, and it was pictures of girls with handbags and fashion. I went, "Well, okay, I'm not interested in that." And she goes, No, it's for everything." And I said, "What do you mean everything?" She said, "Right, what? I'll type in Airbus." And she typed in Airbus, and there's some pictures of airplanes. And she went, "Look, I'll type in Airbus A350. That's the one you're flying, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." And the A350 pictures came up, and I went, "Oh, that's really cool." So I opened up an account, and then we were doing some training up in Glasgow when we got our first A350s, and there was loads of plane spotters, and I was seeing their pictures of me flying the A350. So I then posted some pictures from the cockpit. And then I got talking to these guys through DMs, which I now know. And this whole communication started up, and this little community started up on Instagram where I would post pictures of the cockpit and they would post pictures of the exterior of the aircraft on the same airports and that. And then it went around the world. And then, unfortunately, COVID changed all our lives, and I found myself grounded. But I had this Instagram account with maybe a couple of thousand followers, which I thought was huge. 2,000 followers was amazing then. And I thought, well, what can I do while I'm sitting on the ground? And with my son, we made up this idea of me holding up a sign saying, "Buy airline tickets like you bought toilet paper." And it was like an internet meme, and it went all around the world. And I was contacted by Fox News, CNN News, Brazilian News. There was German news crews. It was all over the world. Daily Mail got it. Everybody got it, and it became a meme. And then all of a sudden, my Instagram account started picking up, and people said, "What's this guy got to say?" And then I've documented my life during the pandemic, arriving at Heathrow Airport and there's nobody there, and walking through the airport and there's nobody there, and how we get to the aircraft and how we fly to these destinations. And I've just basically documented what I've been doing, and then just trying to post a bit of positivity, because I thought I could treat this like a business. Now, I make no money out of it. I just enjoy doing it. But I thought, right, let's talk about the airline. Let's talk about survivability. So I would post promoting Virgin Atlantic. That's the airline I fly for. So I'd be on the internet saying, Virgin Atlantic this, Virgin Atlantic that. We're still flying cargo. We're a great airline. We're flying the 787. We're flying the 350. And I would just be promoting Virgin Atlantic on all my posts. I was then kept pushing the buy airline tickets like you bought toilet paper. Because if you remember this time last year, Mike, we all thought, this will be over by the summer. This whole pandemic thing will be over. So I'm promoting people to buy airline tickets, but it just didn't happen. And then I realized that there's a lot of my colleagues who have now lost their jobs, and they're not sure when they're coming back. So I then moved into thinking about trying to support them by saying, "Hey guys, look, this is what it's like in the cockpit. You guys will get back, and we're going to get you back. And the only way we can get you back is by me and everybody else trying to promote aviation." So I was then talking to lots of other Instagram people saying, right, let's just keep promoting aviation. We don't know when it's going to come back. Let's just keep doing it. And it's grown and grown and grown. And now we're at the point where it's so lovely is every single trip I do now, I'm welcoming somebody back to the cockpit. So I'm training pilots now in the simulator and on board the aircraft. These are guys that have spent 15 months grounded, and I'm now seeing them in the simulator and I'm welcoming them back. And it's just been the most fantastic feeling. It's like full circle now from, saying, come and fly with us, to actually getting guys back in the cockpits. And we're now getting ready to take off just as soon as we can. And there was some publicity yesterday with all the CEOs of the major airlines in the UK trying to get Boris Johnson to change the rules and let us all fly again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like when I go onto your Instagram page, it's like a ray of sunshine. You're just happy. Some of the videos are great that you do. One of my favourite, I think, is where you push someone and it goes right back.
Yes,
along the galley. Yeah, I love that one. That was great. That's how I got onto yourself.
And I've done that with all the cabin crew as well. When they get on board, they go, "Oh, can you do one for me?" I go, "Yeah, I'll do one for you."
Yeah.
And I make a little video, and then they post it on there. So the cabin crew have got their own versions as well. So it's great fun.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you some personal questions here, Chris, if you're happy to do that.
Of course I am.
Right. So do you have any hobbies?
Instagram. No, it used to be property development. I love working on my house. I've got a couple of places that I work on, but haven't been able to do much of that because I've been stuck in hotels like I am here. Because of COVID, I can't travel as much, so I haven't been able to do much of the property development, but I'll get back to that. So while I'm stuck in hotels, it's Instagram.
Brilliant. Favourite aircraft you have flown?
Oh, favourite aircraft? It has to be the A340 because I spent 25 years flying the A340 all around the world with Virgin Atlantic. So the A340-600, such a cool aeroplane.
It is indeed. One you would like to fly before you end your career or maybe afterwards?
Yeah, it's interesting. Every pilot, unless they flew the Concorde, said they want to fly the Concorde. So I wish I'd had that opportunity. I was in the wrong age group to do that. And they'll probably be in the wrong age group for the new one, the Boom supersonic aircraft. Because I think that'll be flying when I retire. So, yeah, flying a supersonic aircraft must be pretty cool. So I think I'm going to miss out on I've missed the Concorde and I'm going to miss the Boom as well. But that would be it.
So you mentioned your Instagram there. So can you tell our followers and our viewers where we can find you?
Oh, it's one of the easiest ones out there. At Captain Chris. The at symbol, Captain Chris. Yeah, CHRIS. Very easy.
And you upload daily, don't you? Because you're quite
every day
on stories as well. You're quite good on that, and some great stories out there.
Yeah, one of my followers suggested a thing called Wings Wednesday, and I started putting pictures of wings on there. The only problem is if you not Google, but if you look on Instagram, Wings Wednesday, you get a lot of people putting pictures of Kentucky Fried Chicken and fried chicken. So
didn't think of course.
So we changed it from Wings Wednesday to Wing Tip Wednesday, because that's obviously just an aeroplane. So every Wednesday I ask people to upload a picture of a wingtip that might be on their phone from a holiday 3 or 4 years ago, picture looking out the window of an aircraft's wingtip, and just put Wingtip Wednesday, put Captain Chris on it, and I'll upload it to my story. And it just means that we all get connected and we share our love of aviation, because it's coming back and we'll be back there just as soon as we can. So Wingtip Wednesday on a Wednesday I'll be doing again this week.
Absolutely. And as a side note here, obviously you have the best view. You must want to take pictures all the time because the views you get must be incredible.
They are the most amazing pictures, and regularly I'm being really lucky. It's like tomorrow, I'm already excited. I'm going to Los Angeles tomorrow, and when we go to Los Angeles, we regularly fly over Greenland. Now, Greenland's not sunny every day of the week, as you could imagine, but every now and then you go across the southern end of Greenland and you get the most spectacular views. And yes, because there's 3 of us in the cockpit, one of us could be standing up there getting as many photos as we can. So I'll be putting lots of photos on Instagram if we get some good views tomorrow of Greenland as we fly over it, because it's such a stunning part of the world. So, yeah, regularly trying to get as many photos as I can, because you never know when this is going to end.
Exactly, yeah. Well, Chris, thanks very much for coming on the show and sharing a bit of your story. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, Mike. It's fantastic. You're really positive, and I love positive people. Exactly, that's what makes aviation so fun. We've all got the same love of aviation, and thanks, and very nice to meet you, Mike.
You too, Chris. Cheers.